Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Art Equals Life. I'm your host, JT Dubs.
I'm Higgs.
And I'm Moose. I don't even go by Moose anymore.
What are you talking about, Moose?
I have rebranded. I'm Moosey now.
You've rebranded. You're Moosey now?
Yeah.
Okay, well, y'all are not allowed to dead name Moosey. If I see any moose in the comments, any meese down there, you getting unsubscribed from this channel. We're kicking you out.
And Moosey will come to your house and body slam you.
Oh, God. Dear God.
Yeah, that's not a threat. That's a promise. All right, so it's been many a month since we have all recorded together. Maybe it's been over. I think it's been over a year, actually, because Beth, Higgs' wife, was actually on with us on the last episode. So I think, Moose, it's been a little bit since you recorded with Higgs and I. So how you been, Moose? What you been up to?
It's been a while.
No, man. Things have been going all right for me. You know, kids. JoJo, our pre-co-host before Higgs joined. She starts preschool in a couple of months. We're vibing it out, you know. We moved and we live in a different city now, different house. Just chugging along.
Not many preschoolers get to go into school getting to say that they used to host a podcast.
Imagine going into pre-K and they're like, give us one fun fact about you. And she's like, I'm JoJo and I was in a podcast when I was a baby.
But in reality, it'll be a lot more like, I like dinosaurs.
She does like dinosaurs.
Saying you're a podcaster is way cooler to say when you're in like elementary, middle school, and then when you're in college, they're just like, oh, look at this fucking loser.
Another white guy with a microphone.
Yeah, pretty fly for a white guy.
Hey, what do you call a group of 3 straight white men or more?
Oh, Lord.
A podcast.
Moose, I guess you're a straight white man now.
Dang.
Sorry.
You know what? It was about time that I came out.
Look, Moosey changed their name to Moosey, and they go by he, him now as a white man. So we've all accepted Moosey for all of his, hers, their lifestyle changes.
Hell yeah.
So.
We respect you, King.
I appreciate that.
Oh, Captain, my captain. Well, since it's been a while since we recorded, we've decided to change up our banter a little bit so that we're not super dated and irrelevant with the stuff we talk about. So I've decided to introduce a new segment called The Question of the Day. We'll get a theme song for that eventually.
You've got a question, we've got the answer. The question of the day.
The question of today is, if you could delete one emotion from the human experience, what would it be and why?
Ooh.
Higgs, you want to start off?
I feel like because I'm the one who came up with this episode topic to begin with, definitely anxiety. I am like the most anxiety prone person you will ever meet. A great example actually was earlier this week. I was planning a cookout at my house, right? And like none of the dates were just working, and like it was totally irrational for me to like be like anxious about like a cookout date, but like whenever there's like a change in routine or something, it like messes with my brain and it like makes me like irrationally anxious for the rest of the day. But then JT Dubs was involved and he was just like, dude, just do what you want and just let the chips fall where they lie. And it was actually very good advice. So I appreciate that, bro.
Dude, I was looking through this group chat and I was hanging out with my girlfriend and we were like looking through the texts and she was like, why can't they just make a decision? And I was like, you know what? I just like texted. I was like, just pick a random day and whoever can be there will be there and whoever can't just won't be there. I was like half joking, but it ended up working out well for everybody except, you know,
yeah.
RIP to the people that can't come, but you know.
I'm such a people pleaser. That's the thing.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, that does tie in with anxiety.
That's true.
So Moosey, which emotion would you remove from the human experience and why?
You know, that's a tough one for me because I feel like stress and anxiety kind of go hand in hand, and they both are like really big factors in my life. But if I was to remove any of them, I would also have to go with like anxiety, and because it's the absolute worst. Is it even even? Yeah, no, it's an emotion.
I mean, it is an Inside Out too. So
I was literally about to say, if it's a character in Inside Out, then it counts as an emotion.
True, very true.
I actually gave that movie a rewatch a day or so ago because I knew we were talking about anxiety today.
That's a good point. That it's ironic that we didn't even include that in our like podcast because I actually really liked that movie And I feel like it was very focused on anxiety. Like that was the emotion in that movie that was more important than really I think the other ones, honestly.
It's like there was a lesson in the first movie where like, hey, sadness is important sometimes. Whereas the lesson in Inside Out 2 is like a lot more like adult in that anxiety doesn't really help you in any way, but at the same time, you're never going to get rid of it. And the older you get, kind of the worse it's going to get. And so you may as well just kind of try to live with it as best you can.
Yeah, I can see that.
So
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that I completely understand where you're coming from on the whole adult thing. My personal opinion that the moral of it was, like you said, it's something that kind of lingers around and it'll never go away. But instead of more like, oh, you just kind of have to deal with it, it's like learning self-control.
Well, I think that's what I meant, in that it's never going to go away, but you can find ways to contain it.
Yeah, to cope. Learning skills with your other emotions, not exactly to mask it, but to keep it at bay.
Yeah, I agree with that. And there was also something that Joy said that was, maybe the older you get, just the less joy you feel.
Yeah, that was pretty tough.
That was the most, like, brutally honest kids movie I've ever seen. Like, as a jaded-ass adult, I was just like, damn, girl, preach.
I remember going to see that movie and they said stuff like that, and the whole movie was like very poignant for the experience of someone who is an adult. And I was in there watching the movie, and there were like all these kids in the movie like, yay, look at Joy, look at the colorful characters. And I'm like, why are y'all even here? This movie isn't even for you at this point.
Is this movie rated
Like
R?
if I was a kid, I don't know what I would have gotten from that movie. I would have been like, what was that movie even about? Like if I was like 5 years old seeing that movie, I don't think I would have known what the movie was even about. Just like there's colorful characters running around this imaginary world or whatever. Like,
You know, it's funny that you say that because I've noticed the statement that you said was like, why are you even here? This is like more like adult based. I've noticed that they're taking a lot of movies that we, like our age group, grew up with, and then they're also making more things more adult based again, but not as raunchy.
Yeah, like tackling a lot heavier themes.
Yeah, exactly. Like tackling a lot heavier themes and keeping it child appropriate, rather than if you look at like things from like 2008 and before.
I don't know, man. Risha Terabithia has a kid who's wrestling with the fact that his dead best friend might be in hell.
Dude, no. I remember when I watched that movie. That was like one of the very first movies to ever make me cry.
we don't talk about that movie. Higgs.
I've never seen it all the way through.
Didn't we talk about this movie in one of our previous episodes? I feel like we brought this up at some point.
What if y'all brought it up in the Dune episode where I wasn't there?
That might have been it. I feel like it got brought up at some point, or at least I was talking about it with somebody. I think too, just like movies are getting deeper right now in certain ways because like I just think in general people are really bored and tired of like really like meaningless shit. And it's not to say that like you can't have like something come out that's generally like light and fun, but I just think like I think a lot of people now are looking for deeper meaning in pop culture. So
It's funny that you say that about people like making things to have deeper topics. Isn't it kind of funny that there is no in between? We literally have absolute fucking brain rot.
We got the Minecraft movie.
Yeah. Or we have like absolute fucking heartstring pullers that are gonna make you bawl your eyes out. And it's not even movies, it's TV shows too.
I don't know what you're talking about. When Jack Black and Jason Momoa
You said it right.
I always want to call him Jason Mimosa.
Mimosa.
You know what? He is a tall drink.
When Jason Momoa and Jack Black 69'd in the Minecraft movie, I don't know, that really got to me emotionally.
For all I know, that actually is real.
No, that is real. That's the thing.
Are you
I mean,
serious?
have you seen Jet Black in them
That's
pants?
in the movie, dude.
No, you're lying.
No, you have to watch it now.
Yeah, you have to watch it for the Jason Momoa Jet Black 69 scene.
Oh my god.
Like you can be mad at me if you watch the movie and it doesn't happen. It's in there. Like I'll bet money that it's there. because I saw the damn movie.
I went and saw it. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, we all know you went to see it, Moosey.
I thought that shit was hilarious.
In an ironic sense, yes. Well, now that we've completely derailed this topic into the point where we're talking about the Minecraft movie now, I think it's probably safe for us to move on.
Yeah, banter is over.
Banter is over. And for the record, I didn't answer the question. My answer, I'll make it short and sweet. Because I'm not going to say anxiety like y'all, because that would just be like me repeating the same thing for a third time. It wouldn't really be that interesting. I want to say we could keep the part of anxiety that actually helps you make some smart decisions in life by thinking ahead. And we're going to remove the part of anxiety that is just overthinking.
Yes.
Like if we could isolate that part of anxiety, which is just the overthinking portion of it, that's what I want to get rid of. But the part of anxiety that like helps me think ahead in things and be like, maybe I should like do this to prepare for this. That's not necessarily a bad part of anxiety. So with that out of the way, we're going to be talking about our topic of the day, the art to our life, which is The Bear, the TV series that is on, I think it's through FX, but I think they just dumped the seasons on Hulu. Okay. The network is officially called FX on Hulu, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah,
So,
and that pissed me off to no end. I gotta go on a little rant for a second. It's like, it's through FX, but they just dump it all on Hulu. Because it's like, I feel like that would make a really good companion piece for, like, an episode of It's Always Sunny. You know what I'm saying? Like you put on an episode of The Bear, like, either before or after, like, the newest episode of It's Always Sunny. And I don't know, it's like, you get a nice bit of anxiety right after watching something really funny, or vice versa. You watch something really anxiety focused, and you need a nice little palate cleanser with the gang of Patty's Pub, you know?
they're the same show, though. There's just people yelling at each other.
Yeah, but one's funny and one gives you a heart attack.
I think both shows do both of those things, though. There were some very funny moments in The Bear, and then there's some very anxiety-ridden moments in It's Always Sunny.
This show did win like 10 different Emmys for like best outstanding comedy series.
Well, so, Higgs, this was the episode that you chose the topic for.
Yeah.
So do you want to go ahead and sort of introduce The Bear to the audience for, I guess, anyone who's listening that maybe isn't super familiar with it?
Yeah, so The Bear, as we said, is an FX show that they put on Hulu. It is about a young-ish chef named Carmi Rosado. His friends call him The Bear. And he's a very talented chef. But he also has a lot of baggage based off of all just like the shit that he's gone through with things of his dysfunctional family to an abusive mentor that he had at like culinary school. And just this ever-present feeling that he's never going to be good enough. If you've ever seen the movie Whiplash, he has a very similar mindset as the main character in that movie.
Except that mentor was probably more abusive and more helpful at the same time.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like, too, another big aspect of the show is this sort of looming shadow of, the main character's name is Carmi. It's Carmi's brother, Mikey, committed suicide and left him the restaurant. And so it not only does he have to deal with the PTSD and anxiety of living up to his own standards, but also, like, he wants to make his deceased brother proud of him while also sort of having to take on this task of getting this restaurant together that is a complete mess when he comes in.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, Jeremy Allen White as the lead character, Carmi, I really think if we're going to praise anything specifically about this show, well, there's a few things that would probably come to mind, but I'd say like the main things would be like his performance and the writing and the cinematography, I think are like probably the three best elements of the show. So if we're going to talk about like Jeremy Allen White and his performance first, like I just feel like he really went into this role and took on the weight with it that was necessary. Like I feel like if I was an actor and I was going to play that character, you almost have to live through the trauma of the character to really be able to act it out, you know? And it's just such a like soft-spoken role at times and also like a very harsh role at times. Like he goes from like 1 to 11 at any given episode, where he'll go from being kind of mousy and timid and kind of like awkward, but then there's times in the series where he'll get really heated, you know. I know like very early on in the show he gets pretty heated with Richie a lot, And then as we get into the later seasons, the stress of what he's dealing with managing the restaurant really gets to him, and he gets really heated with everybody. So I mean, there's just a lot of range to that character, and I like the duality of him in that like you really do feel sorry for him, and he's like the type of character that you feel a lot of empathy for, that you want to just reach out and give him a hug, but then other times, especially later on, he makes a lot of decisions that are so boneheaded that you're like, why was I pulling for you? You're a fucking idiot. What are you doing, dude? And that's what I think is so great about not only like the writing for the character, but the performance, is the fact that they can make you feel that much for him in only, I mean, there's what, like less, maybe around 30 episodes. Like in that span of time, they make you feel just very intensely for him in a like very specific way. Like the last episode that I watched was the end of season 3, and I won't spoil what happens, but there's a scene in there where he is confronting someone from his past, and it's like in one part of the scene I'm with him and I'm like, yeah, like I'm pulling for him, like, yeah man, stand up for yourself. And then there's other parts where you're like, did you really need to say that, or was that really productive? Why are you doing this to yourself? Like, and I just feel like that's just the sign of like good writing and a good character, that you can just feel that intensely for him in like a lot of different ways. I feel like there's a lot of characters in shows where like a lot of TV characters are kind of flat. Like it's like you either love that character or you hate that character, or, you know, you sort of like think they're funny, or you really are like interested in the drama behind them. But with him, it's like it's like he feels like your little brother, and also like the dude that you're working with, that you're just like, can you just shut up, like. And I like that he makes you feel a lot, you know.
I think that's where I disagree. I pretty much felt the sympathy for him the entire time from start to finish. I think it's because just from being able to relate to him so well with the anxiety, the loss of a loved one, and funny enough, managing a fucking restaurant. maybe not to its extent, you know, because I wasn't managing a fucking Michelin star, but
Oh, I straight up worked out at Zaxby's and I can relate.
yeah, for me it was Wendy's.
Moose, we know that Wendy's you worked at had a Michelin star. That was some fine shit right there. Don't be downplaying that.
Yeah, it had it because of me, bro.
So another character that to me I feel like was on almost the opposite trajectory as Carmy was Richie, because at the beginning of the show he's a bonehead and an asshole, and he's like really irritating. And as it goes on, it's like you see what he went through. You see like situation with his ex-wife and his daughter, and obviously he lost his best friend with Mikey. And you know, as it goes on, like he goes through like this really nice character arc where he matures and grows up and sort of like learns to like respect other people and respect their passions and stuff, from this one episode in season 2 where he works at this really nice restaurant. And you sort of see in that episode like the barriers he puts up kind of get broken down a bit. And I don't know, like I really liked his character a lot. And it was funny because, like I said, I felt like he was kind of the opposite of Carmy, because Carmy starts off, you really feel bad for him, and then, like I said, for me, season 3, I just wanted to smack him for half of it. And then with Richie, it was the opposite. Season 1, it was like, this dude is so obnoxious. And then by the end, I really liked where his character was going.
Yeah, I can most definitely agree with that. Mm-hmm. See, for me, it's almost like what is it? Something that your parents always say to you? I'm not mad, I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I feel that. And I think some of the other elements we talked about were like, the cinematography is really great. I think that's super consistent throughout the whole show. If anything, I think it just gets better as it goes on.
Oh yeah.
Maybe not a ton to break down there. It's very artsy and like generally a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of cinematography, the editing is really good. There's one episode where they're getting like 1 million tickets, like back to back, going through like the order count thingy, and like you see the paper go up, and it's just like making that little noise. And the way they combine the editing with the sound, it's just like jarring every time, because like they basically, like every shot is like a second, maybe a second and a half long, and it creates this feeling of tension of your brain can't process everything that they're showing you at one time, and you really feel like you're stuck in a kitchen and you're just overwhelmed by how much is being piled on top of you, which again I can definitely relate to.
Absolutely. I mean, I think most people, even if they haven't worked in the food service industry, like you've probably worked retail, or you've pretty much everybody's worked a job at some point that they hate. So it's like, I mean, the show does a very good job of having sort of this balance between you get to see all the characters' personal lives play out, but also you spend a lot of time in the restaurant and you get the feel. It really does sort of communicate the feeling of like you're at work and it's one of those work days that just sucks. And because I mean, I'm sure you guys relate. It's like you've all had days at work where you go in and like maybe you're not going in with your best foot, or maybe you are going in with hopes that it'll be a good day, but just like within the first like 10 minutes, you just know it's going to be one of those days. And it like it's that day that like everything goes to shit, everything goes wrong, and then it's like you don't even get to leave on time. Like you leave like an hour later too. Like it's just like that's how the show kind of feels sometimes, and not necessarily in a bad way, but just like it really does communicate that through the cinematography by showing all these things and the little details of how of the restaurant, by the pacing of everything, how it's fast paced, but also like there are parts of it that some certain scenes sometimes feel like they're dragging, and I think that's generally on purpose, like because it's just like communicating their suffering. And the dialogue is just them yelling at each other half the time. Like, it does a good job of communicating that misery in an experience that I guess is stressful to the viewer, but I wouldn't say is like miserable as a viewer to watch. I don't know how much we want to get into it. I was kind of miserable during season 3, if I'm going to be completely honest.
No, we could talk about season 3 because I think our opinions on it are a lot more aligned than I think you think they are.
Yeah, because okay, so season 1, I really like season 1. Just to clarify, I really like season 1. Season 2, I love. I think season 2 might be like one of the best seasons of a TV show that I've ever seen. Like that's like a 10 out of 10, honestly. But when we get to season 3, it started off very slow, and I kept thinking, okay, this is building up to something. We're gonna get somewhere with this. And then 10 episodes later, it was like over, and I was like, nothing happened. It was so frustrating. One thing that gave me anxiety about watching, y'all are gonna laugh at me. This is one of my stupid like OCD things. The episode lengths are all over the place. Y'all know it took me forever to binge it. It wasn't because it wasn't good. I genuinely enjoyed, the first 2 seasons. But when I was trying to like watch it before bed, it'd be like, all right, I have time for a 30-minute episode. I'd look at the runtime. It's like, this episode is like 45 minutes. And I'm like, I don't have time to watch this tonight. Or I'd be like, all right, we're going to watch this episode. And it's like, it's an hour long. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess we'll save that one for when we all just watch it as a group. Like
that was a lot of fun, though.
Yeah, that one was fun. That the Fishes episode in season 2, if, whoever hasn't seen it, go check that one. That one's great. But for me, though, the fact that like there wasn't a ton of consistency with the episode lengths, like they did kind of go all over the place. It did give me some anxiety because because when you think about it, like this show in a lot of ways is structured like a sitcom. It's about like a group of people that work at a restaurant. That's a very sitcom-y kind of setting. But in a lot of ways, it's
It's Always Sunny, like we said.
Yeah, but it's like an anti-sitcom in certain ways because it's so much darker. It doesn't really make you feel like a sitcom does. It's very artistic too, which is typically not like the case with cinematography for like a sitcom either. But it's like a very sitcom setting, but it's like everything about it is like an anti-sitcom. The episodes are not a consistent, safe length of 22 minutes that you can get into like a comfort zone with and be like, I can watch this in 22 minutes and it's in and it's done. Like some episodes could be 30, some could be 20, some could be like a freaking hour. It's just, it's all over the place. And, I mean, it's a small thing to point out, but I do think it is consistent with like the fact that, and this might be something that I feel like is really maybe what does make it so interesting to people is this show has no care at all for keeping you in your comfort zone. Like it wants you to be uncomfortable, and it succeeds at it. I think everything about the show kind of makes you uncomfortable in certain ways, and that is like artistically speaking something that is interesting because it does challenge you as a viewer. But Higgs, what was your thoughts overall in season 3? Because we talked about it a little bit. I mostly just said I thought it was slow. It didn't really lead up to anything, and it felt kind of like filler. And I did some research, and it turns out that I guess FX or Hulu ordered an extra season, so they split what was going to be season 3 into 3 and 4. So maybe season 4 will kind of pick up the slack a little bit, but that's what I heard. So.
That makes sense. So, whatever. So, we have like a little group chat for this podcast, right? And Jackson was basically kind of coming right out the gate with season 3, basically explaining his dislike of it, based on the fact that the episode or the season starts off in episode 1 of Carmi basically just kind of grappling with a terrible decision that he makes at the end of season 2. And it has all of the editing and all the kind of anxiety that you expect from the rest of the show. But it's basically just centered around him thinking about what he's done.
The whole episode was just flashbacks and montages. It drove me insane.
There was new footage in there, okay?
2 minutes, maybe.
Calm down. Okay, but let me finish, okay? I was giving it a pass for that one episode because, like, okay, you can, ponder your thoughts for one episode. Fine, whatever. But that is how the entire dang season goes. And that is where me and you do agree, is they do not go away from that. Even to the last episode. Okay, I will not lightly spoil something that happens at the end of season 3, where I do think there is a little bit of payoff at the very end. Whenever he, confronts this one person about like, hey, you kind of ruined my life. But then you see another character who works under Carmi also suffering an anxiety attack. And basically, because Carmi does not... And it's sort of this weird meta-textual sort of commentary going on in that because he doesn't get over, like, all the, like, demons in his life, he's passing on this trauma to another kind of younger student.
Generational trauma.
Yes, exactly. But, like, instead of doing it with family, you're doing it with your friends.
And it happened with him and his family, too.
That is true.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, because a character that we haven't talked about is Sydney. And she's interesting because she's sort of like works under him, but she also is kind of like his equal in a lot of ways. So it's a very interesting dynamic. As I sort of dove into the show's fandom and stuff, I looked up a lot of message boards. Apparently, people really ship those two. I wasn't necessarily thinking it, but they do have really good chemistry as actors. But she does sort of serve a little bit as like his mentee or his protege, I guess, a little bit throughout the show. And I do think that was really cool in season 3, how we sort of got to see how he was passing on that trauma from his mentor down to her. And I think it sets up something really cool for season 4. Like, the thing is with season 3 is there's a lot of cool moments and cool, like, things in there. Like, it's not like there's nothing good in there. The problem is that you have to just sift through just, like, mud and just wait. But it's like, once you get to the good moments, like, there's a lot of moments I really liked in season 3. It's more like I would just go on YouTube and look them up than, like, rewatch all those hours of that season again. For me, I don't mind so much because I just watched all this show at once. So season 4 is about to come out, and for me, it's just like a little break. But I do feel bad for the people that watched. I guess season 3 came out last year, so I feel bad if you watched it last year and had to wait a whole year just for like the second half of this season, basically.
No, straight up, that is me. I watched the whole season like the day it came out.
Man, that must have been a hard day.
Okay, maybe not all on the same day, but still.
A hard day, but your eyes were pleased because the cinematography was very beautiful in season 3. Like, Moose, what was your some of your thoughts on season 3? Like, did you like it or did you feel the way we did about it?
Yeah, pretty much the same. The only thing that I also kind of felt, I do think there, and I don't want to like spoil it, but you were talking about Carmi and the person that he's mentoring. I do like how, because of how he's treating her, she kind of recognizes it, and she's actually thinking about like getting out.
She should, man. Carmi does not deserve her.
So there is that. I do like the that they kind of show that that is something that's recognized, and that and they don't like continue the cycle. But I personally don't like how, I guess it was the same thing with the montages for me. I personally don't like how they did season 3, the whole, I don't know what it was. I think it more so had to do with the fact that like I couldn't keep up, I guess. It's kind of hard for me to like put it into words. It was really hard for me to.
It's a lot.
It was really hard for me to keep up. Like, oh, okay, so we're back in the past again. What's going on now? And then, oh, this is present day. Oh, well, this person's here. When the did they get there? Excuse my language.
You'll get bleeped.
Yeah, well, it just like the flow of it was good, but the flow of season 3 was really difficult for me because I couldn't keep up with it. Trying to like timeline everything and put it where it needed to be. And then, like you said, the way that they ended season 3 really sucked.
Yeah.
I like Sugar a lot, but I really hate the way they did her episodes. I hate that the only Sugar episodes that we got, Sugar is the nickname for Carmi's sister, by the way. I hate that they only gave her pregnancy episodes. That was it, like the whole childbirth thing.
She is a woman, so her episodes must be about pregnancy and giving birth.
That was not even her episode. That was Jamie Lee Curtis's episode. Let's be real.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's more so my point is that like she's the only person in the entire show that's a main, in quotations, a main character that is not a chef, but she does a lot for the entire restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's the manager.
Yeah, for sure.
She helps run the restaurant, and like instead of a day-to-day life focused on her and what she does for the restaurant, they only focus it on her and the stress of her having a baby. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like maybe that's something that shouldn't have rubbed me the wrong way, but it's like, come on, dude, this is a great character and this is the only thing you're gonna show us about her.
Also, it was weird to me that the whole episode was about, like, the whole episode is just about her, like, going into labor, and we never get to see the baby's, like, born or whatever. It's just like, it's like 2 or 3 episodes later, they're like, oh yeah, here's her, like, looking at the crib with the baby or whatever. Like, it was like, the next episode didn't even mention that she was pregnant. I was like, what?
It's like how the old lady, or like the mom character in The Room, when she says that she has breast cancer, and it's just never brought up again.
I have breast cancer. No response. Or no, she says, I definitely have breast cancer or something. Yeah. Wow, Mark, what a story.
What a story, Carmi.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of like things, like there's a lot of good things like the older lady Tina, like her backstory of how she started working at the restaurant. She's got that really good scene with Carmi's brother, and it's like, and I liked that Sugar and the mom kind of like worked their stuff out. Like there's a lot of like good moments in the season, but they're also spread out, and they're all different time periods, and there's so much montage, and the episodes like towards the end were getting really long, and it was just like I said, there's a lot of scenes that I'd like probably go back and watch on YouTube, but I don't know that I would just sit through this whole season again. Like, I think if I was going to rewatch the whole show, I would probably just watch seasons 1 and 2 and then watch a recap of season 3 and then watch season 4 or whatever. Like, so before we move on though, cause I'm sure we could talk about this show to death. One last little bit though, before we like move on to the topic of the episode. Let's not spoil anything too heavily here, but I do want to say, season 4 is coming out in a month. Do y'all have any predictions about what will happen in season 4? Because I have one that I want to throw out there. I predict that the restaurant will fail.
Ooh.
I do too. Me too.
I think they're going to close it down.
They pretty much gave that away with that little scene with Uncle Jimmy.
Yeah, Uncle Jimmy. I think he's raring to just like destroy that restaurant. He's like, if you don't give me my money, like this is not going to end well for you.
Well, here's the thing: is I kind of want it to fail because the problem with Carmi is he's such a damn perfectionist. It's like, oh, we're gonna change the menu every day. It's like, f*** off. And I know I'm gonna have to delete. I know I'm gonna bleep that out, but I don't care.
He's like non-negotiables, 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 non-negotiables. How many times did they say that word in that fucking episode?
It's like, you deserve to have your restaurant be taken down if you're doing that. Like, that is not a like I realize what he's trying to do. He's trying to elevate it to like 3-star Michelin chef stuff, right? But you're still dealing with a bunch of people who at the beginning of the show were like, they were basically running a sandwich stand, okay?
Yes.
So maybe not go to this like 0-100 place. So like if you're doing that, you deserve to have your restaurant taken down.
I would love if the show ended with them just turning it back into a sandwich restaurant and it goes back to season 1.
I think so. I think Carmi, like,
Full circle.
Despite the fact that he's like very well like versed in like the culinary arts, I think he does need to just like run a sandwich stand and like be happy with mediocrity.
Be happy with a girlfriend that likes him.
Yes.
It would be funny if it was like all a dream.
All a dream. Okay, that's the best prediction. That's the okay. I want that. That's the no. Season 3 should just be a fever dream.
Yeah, like
No, a fever dream that he had in the freezer.
it really does feel like one. Yeah, like bro died in the freezer from hypothermia.
Yes.
No. Richie's just like shaking Carmi, like Carmi, wake up. And he's just like, what? She's like, man, you were talking about some like weird stuff.
You kept talking about non-negotiables. He's like waking up. This is a little spoilery, so just spoiler warning. No, he's like waking up. He's like, the review. And he's like, wake up, buddy. You've been in the freezer for 3 hours.
Here's my thing. Season 3 came out a year ago, so like I feel like spoilers are kind of fair game at this point.
Well, like Vegas spoilers. Like I don't want to spoil any like
Right.
specific plot points because I mean, like if this podcast gets somebody into the show, then I don't want to ruin a bunch of stuff for them before they watch it.
Oh, so I shouldn't mention the fact that Carmi kills Richie at one point?
If it was season 1, I would have liked it. But what sucks though too, I do think, is that like season 2, I was really invested in them making the restaurant work, and when the season ended, you kind of felt like they like even though Carmi's personal life was in turmoil, like it felt like okay, at least it's at the expense of him turning this into a really good restaurant. But with season 3, it's like, oh well, now I don't even like the restaurant, and I think it should just end. So
Yeah.
maybe that's the point. Maybe they want us to root for like the downfall. Like maybe it's just a Greek tragedy.
Maybe so.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe Sydney will leave, and like maybe she'll have a happy ending in the show or something. I mean, you know, somebody's got to have a happy ending.
Here's hoping, man.
Yeah, I just want my boy Richie to be okay.
Yeah, Richie, and the donut boy. They all deserve a happy ending.
Donut boy, donut boy, whose mom. Oh wait, I won't spoil it. I was gonna spoil it. I was like, no, we'll save that. Donut boy loves his mom very much. All right, we're gonna take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back talking more about the bear and anxiety. We'll be back.
Art equals life.
Hey bro, you wanna play some League of Legends and smash some Prime Energy and Feastables till 3 a.m.?
No, whoa. I literally just got the fattest up bitch from OnlyFarts.
Only farts? What's that?
Whoa, they got everything here. I was able to get some premium stuff from Sniper Wolf's Potent Cheeks. You can have Discord kittens come to meet with you and leave you a hot queen with steamer on your chest. Fart in the jar for $19.99. Golden showers, scat play, you name it, bro.
Wait, you're telling me you pay girls on OnlyFarts to make videos pooping and pissing on people and sell you a jar of their farts?
Honey, you got a jar in the mail. It's empty though. Do you want me to open it?
Wait, mommy, no!
Oh my god, it stinks!
You ruined my farts I bought for my sexy waifu goddess! I hate you!
Lord, thank you, Jesus. At least he's not gay.
Damn, bro, your mom's a bitch. She's kind of a MILF, though. Can you get me a jar of her farts?
Only farts for all your dirty gooning needs. Subscribe now for a free trial and receive a scratch and sniff sampler for no additional cost. We're waiting. Huh?
I need those farts!
I gotta be right back. I just pissed myself.
quick little trigger warning for anyone listening. We're going to be talking about anxiety and mental health and suicide and some things that could potentially be triggering for you, the viewer. So just keep that in mind, and we're going to get started. So with the bear, the topic we chose, I guess, was anxiety, and I think that really is probably the appropriate theme of the show to lean into, because it ties in very well with Carmi's mental health, but also just like his surroundings are anxious, and like we talked about, everything involved with the show is kind of anxiety inducing. There's an entire scene in season 3 where they're just saying "F you" back and forth for like 10 minutes, and I was like,
Well, it was pretty much them like just recapping everything that fucking happened, or not recapping, but continuing everything that happened after the ending of season 2. So that's why it was so hostile, and it was just constant F-bombs back and forth, because they were still just so upset with each other after what happened at the end of season 2.
and it was, during the fever dream, so anything could happen. I think if it is a fever dream, then like the sleep paralysis demons were definitely the facts, because they just kept showing up in season 3 at every possible moment. And there were just more of them appearing. Like, there were just new facts in every episode. Fun fact.
Heyo.
That's a terrible joke. But my mom's going to kill me for saying this. But there's a funny little story. We were watching season 3 together, and at one point my mom saw the main fact, Maddie Matheson, show up, and she goes, "Jackson, you know who that is?" And I was like, "Who?" And she's like, "That's Badger from Breaking Bad."
That's amazing.
And I look at her, I go, "Mom, no, that's not Badger. Like, he's not short and fat." Their voices are kind of similar, but yeah. Like, she's gonna be so mad that I told that story, but it was just so funny. Like, I can't think of that character now without thinking of Badger. And then we decided that his name was Honey Badger, because he was like Badger in like post Breaking Bad, after he's gone into hiding, and now he's living in Chicago, and he
Hibernation.
yeah, and he like gained a ton of weight, so they call him Honey Badger now. But yeah, the show really does give you anxiety when you watch it, and I think what I really liked about it though was it sort of explored the different sides of anxiety, because like, yes, there is that like very like, you're in this moment now, you're living it, that live anxiety of just like you're at work and everything is going to shit, and you didn't call the refrigerator guy, and just everything is like a mess, and like it gets that feeling of anxiety in the moment very well. But also kind of like the after effects of anxiety, like that PTSD and that depression that comes along with it, of like, because it's not like anxiety is just this feeling that you get sometimes and then it completely goes away. It's like you feel different phases of it. And a lot of times it's like you almost become depressed and stressed out and anxious as a result of the anxiety you've already felt. So it's like you have scenes of Carmi dealing with the anxiety at work where he's, yelling at people and freaking out. And then you have the scenes where he's at home and he's kind of depressed, and it's like, he's still reeling internally from those anxious moments at work. And I think that does a good job of reflecting real life, because it's like having anxiety is not just a problem of having anxiety. It's also, you feel anxiety, and then it's almost like you traumatize yourself over and over with it. You keep thinking about it, and you keep thinking back to it, and you keep, there's just days where you like put your brain back into that state. Something I've experienced personally was there was a span of a few years, I guess about when I was like college age, like my early 20s. I really had really bad anxiety for a few years there, and it was like I just always was thinking that things were going to go worst case scenario. I was dealing with some PTSD from some experiences I had, and it was just like in my mind, because bad things had happened to me before, it was almost like I was abusing myself and training myself into thinking that the worst case scenario was always going to happen in the future. And that it was like anxiety like morphed my brain into thinking that if I worried about it constantly, that I was going to somehow be able to prevent the bad things from happening. And sometimes you can, sometimes like it helps you prepare for things. And there is a good anxiety to have sometimes, where it allows you to plan and think ahead, but also like it makes you worry about everything, and it makes you replay scenarios in your head over and over and over. And I will give season 3 that. Some of the montages and the flashbacks, like that is a real experience. It's just that maybe that needed to be contained to more like an episode instead of the whole season. And I like a lot of things they did in it. I think my issue too is that maybe there just wasn't enough plot progression to feel justified for that amount of time. But I definitely understand though the feeling of like the montages and the flashbacks, like that does play into a very real feeling when you're dealing with anxiety, and kind of how it crosses over into a depressive state sometimes, because you're traumatizing yourself over and over again by reliving things that genuinely scarred you or upset you, you know.
Well, one thing I also liked is going back to the kitchen scenes is whenever he's like really going through it in the kitchen, it'll flash back to different shots of his mentor just verbally assaulting him back in culinary school. And I like how there's this feeling of like, I'm traumatized and anxious by this thing that's happening to me in the present, but not necessarily because of this thing that is happening to me right now. I'm feeling anxious in this moment of this thing that is happening to me because it's connected to something that happened in my past. Of there's this connection of not feeling good enough that Carmi can't shake.
And it shows too that a lot of times people's issues in this sort of state can really go back to their childhood, and can go back to previous experiences. Like, I really do think the whole point of the episode where we see his mother just verbally abusing him over and over is to just show that he was already sort of prepped to take on this role in life as someone that was just going to be this sponge for verbal abuse. And then it's like he's also, I mean, you know, thematically it makes sense because they're in the kitchen that whole episode when she's verbally abusing him. And then he's in the kitchen again when he's being verbally abused by his mentor. And then in season 3, that does kind of tie in with how he is towards Sydney. So it really is like, you know, it sort of starts at his more formative years and goes into where he's training, and then it goes into present day where he is now kind of becoming the abusive asshole. And so, yeah, it really does sort of show that chain of like, you know, just someone just absorbing this abuse through a way in what they never really knew how to get out of it. And I think we see too in that background that like his brother was someone who was kind of protecting him and was kind of looking out for him. And, you know, and his brother didn't want him working at the restaurant because his brother wanted him to do better things than be surrounded with that toxicity. And then, you know, now that he doesn't have his brother, he's kind of alone and is kind of having to deal with these things for real. And he just doesn't have the tools to handle just the toughness of the world that he's dealing with.
No, definitely. But yeah, like another thing too is kind of reiterating something else is, you know, anxiety is usually never an inciting incident. You know what I mean? Like if you see like a snake in the middle of the road or something, you know, that's going to scare you, but that's not anxiety. Mm-hmm. Anxiety is different because there's usually connections to things that went on in your past. You know what I mean? Absolutely.
And for me, when I was really dealing with like really bad anxiety, my brain always went to this place of like, what if this happens? It was sort of this like fear of the unknown and fear of like what could go wrong as opposed to like what is currently going wrong. Like, I think it's much easier to justify fear of something that you're currently experiencing that is like a real issue that's happening. But it's another thing to just be afraid of fear and be afraid of things happening that may or may not even happen.
There's a certain brand of deodorant that gives me anxiety every time because it smells exactly like this brand of deodorant that I used when I was like in 7th grade when you were like first like having to, you know, put deodorant on for the first time. And every time I smell that, my brain automatically goes to like 7th grade me when my mind was definitely at its like most anxious growing up.
Yeah, anxiety is very tied in with PTSD. Like it's almost like you just have like this moment in the past that scarred you in some way, and anxiety is like your brain's way of like reliving it over and over. And for me, when I was dealing with really bad anxiety, like, I mean, it was something I was dealing with every day. You know, I went to therapy for it, and my therapist at the time like really just helped like walk me through like confronting the traumatic memories I had and like meditating on them and like sort of resolving them internally and like overcoming them. And I mean, that did me a lot of good. That really freed me up in a lot of ways that I was struggling. And I mean, it was like it was a process. Like it took multiple sessions to go through it all. Like it was, and it was like it was traumatic in its own way too, because you're reliving these things, and you know, it brings up just like the worst feelings. But it almost helps you just find a calmness with like that happened. It was bad, but that's not right now. I'm not in that right now, and I can move on. But I mean, again, that some of that's more PTSD in certain ways. You can also just have anxiety from stuff that's happening right now. It's not necessarily triggering something from the past. And the unfortunate part is it's sort of like I feel like anxiety can be this like never-ending cycle of like you can live it and you can experience it, and then once it's over, you're still living it and you're still experiencing it because you're still thinking about it, and you just keep re-traumatizing yourself. So I really think that finding a way to sort of break that chain is the best way to do it. But like I said, that takes like therapy, and it takes meditation, and it takes things that you might have to go through internally. That is, it's not like, oh, okay, I'm away from my torment now, I should be good. Like, yeah, physically you might be good, you're away from a bad situation, but your brain might still bring it up. You might still go back to it. And I mean, that's something everybody has to deal with.
I guess another form of anxiety is, we got obsession with the past, you got obsession with things that are happening in the present, but then you also have anxiety based on obsessions of things that'll happen to you in the future, where you're just like constantly playing scenarios in your head, sort of pretending that you are psychic in a way. Like I think about with Carmi with like the non-negotiables. That's definitely his anxiety sort of hyperfixating on every future scenario in which something can go wrong.
And in certain ways, anxiety can make you kind of, for lack of a better word, sort of insufferable sometimes, because it kind of does make it to where like you think that you're the expert on this because you've dealt with it in the past, and you're like, we're not going to go through this again. But in reality, sometimes it can cause you to be like too stubborn, and it removes the flexibility and the sort of openness to possibilities. When you're set in your ways because something went wrong in the past, it really does limit the way things can go in the future. And I mean, like I said, it's not all bad. Sometimes you can have anxiety about something and like it's a legitimate thing and it can actually pay off. Like if you did do something in the past that went wrong, maybe having a little bit of anxiety about it will help you to, navigate through it and not have to deal with it in the future. But also like, it's not so much about having the like you want to know like how to handle things better, but it's better to handle it in a calm way and not be continuously freaking out over and over. You want to be able to say like, I don't want to experience that again, and I'm going to do everything I can to not experience it. But you also have to be willing to be calm and think logically and not allow that fear to just run your life.
Yeah, man, I can't say it better myself.
Yeah, like you can't be scared to like try things, and you have to be willing to like sometimes accept the consequences of putting yourself out there. But that really does take a lot of therapy and a lot of just self-reflection, and it's not always going to be easy.
Yeah, and if you don't go through that, then you're going to bring that cycle of anxiety and trauma onto other people like Carmi did.
Absolutely. And also, I think there's another part of it that we haven't really discussed is that, his brother killing himself, Mikey was going through a lot of the same things that Carmi was going through, and he ended up ending his life. And it's like, even though he freed himself of that pain, he also brought that pain upon his brother and his family, because now they're traumatized from the experience of losing him. And I'll just say this personally, as someone, I have experienced losing a few different people to suicide in the last few years, some close friends of mine. And like that absolutely traumatizes you. Like when you find that out, like it really does tear you up inside, and it makes you like start worrying about, oh, well, if this person was unhappy and was suffering silently and then they killed themselves, who else do I know is going through this? And like, are more people I know going to, do this to themselves? Like, that is something that has given me anxiety, is worrying about like, are my interactions with people positive? Am I having a positive influence on the world? Because I don't want other people to feel badly. I don't want other people to do that to themselves. And, Unfortunately, because we deal with things in life that are traumatic and stressful all the time, it can always create new anxieties and new things to be afraid of. So it's, I don't want to do this podcast with the expectation that I can just give people the best answers for this. This is stuff I deal with daily and, in my own life, and it can be really hard. But, if anything, I just want people listening out there to know that like they're not alone, because a lot of us are dealing with these different things that we worry about. And I would just recommend to anybody who is dealing with mental health issues to the point to where they're even considering ending their life, like to utilize resources like Suicide Hotline, and utilize any people who even if you don't think they care, I guarantee you somebody cares. At least I hope. There's always ways things can get better.
That was really well put, man.
Yeah, well, it's just that type of stuff weighs on me, and it's like whenever we have the opportunity to talk about these things, I want to try to say everything I've been thinking, because it's a great opportunity too, and we don't always get a chance to talk about these things. We change the topic every episode, so sometimes we talk deeper and sometimes we don't. One thing I would like to touch on just a little bit while we're on the topic is, I know that young men in particular nowadays are really struggling with mental health and loneliness and isolation. And, it sort of gets talked about a little bit, but it's like we always have this conversation after some guy does something horrible, and we never really, we don't have the topic come up too much when we're just trying to help, and it sucks that so many people just don't have the resources in their life to make that improvement. Or even if they do have the resources, maybe they don't feel like they do, or maybe they just are so defeated in certain ways they don't want to get better. And I think like the hard part is like, maybe in society we always see public figures after they've already succeeded, and we very rarely talk about just like what it took someone to get to a more successful place. Like most people who are successful or who have found their way in life probably didn't start that way, or even if they did, they've probably had periods of time where they felt really down, and maybe they just didn't talk about it.
Yeah, and please, if you are feeling down, please talk about it with someone.
Yeah, talk about it with someone. Talk to us, talk to friends, whoever. Like, whoever is willing to listen. And I mean, in certain ways, it's only, your words are only as good maybe as the people that are listening, but there are resources out there, and we'll leave some resources in the description below. And really just, there's not much else I can say other than just know that you're not alone. And if nothing else, like find as many ways to not feel alone as possible. If that means taking a chance and telling somebody how you're feeling, even if you don't necessarily know if that person's going to listen or not, hey, I mean, it doesn't hurt to try. So, but I guess on a brighter note, I will say, like, things can always get better. Even at your lowest point, things can totally turn around. Nothing is like set in stone at the end of the day. You can always improve like things eventually. So,
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, I am JT Dubs. Thank you for listening to Art Equals Life.
I'm Higgs.
And I'm Moosey. Moose has disappeared.
I think Moosey had some motherly duties in the middle of the podcast, so I guess we'll just say goodbye to her right now. All right, bye.
Bye, Moosey. We'll see you eventually again. All right, peace out.
Peace.